Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
Well, good evening, everyone. Karen Reed watchers who today got their fix. And boy, what a day it was. As you know, I'm Linda Kenney Baden for Justice Served TV. Michael Bryant is truly on assignment in a far, far, far away land. He will be with us tomorrow night at 6 p.m. when Aidan Carney joins Justice Served TV to chat. As you know, all of you we're pretty excited the last time he was on, and we are very, very excited to have him back tomorrow night. But today, the star of the show is, shall we say, not the star of the show that the prosecution wanted him to be, I believe, Mr. Welcher, who, by the way, our own accident reconstructionist, Stephen Plord, who was on last week and will be on Thursday night at 6, is friends with and has testified with him and against him. Will be interesting to know about his take about this, because we have some takes here at Justice Served TV. Also, let me just say, the day ended on this huge objection. After there were 8 objections over about a period of an hour, okay? 8, count them, of which Dr. Welcher's testimony, Judson Welcher's testimony, Aperture, had to be, shall we say, stricken. Okay, now, do you know what that means? Well, the judge on the first one didn't want to highlight it for the jury. She said, so she didn't. And I'm like screaming, you better highlight it for the jury. She needs an instruction to the jury right now. Well, after the 8th one, she gave the jury an instruction to say, when I say strike, it means you're not to consider it. Well, it should be you're not to consider it. You're to take your red pen or whatever it is you have, and you're going to exit out of your notebooks. It's as if it never happened. I think the defense has to do more of a strike. Thank you, Will de Glarer. Will de Glarer, you're going to love our show tonight. Will is in the chat. Thank you so much, Will. I appreciate that. Do you know there's somebody who said that I look like I'm a sickly person? I guess they don't really know me or want to somehow demean me in some way to say, therefore, my views on Karen Reed aren't good. Go away here, okay? Jason Grant's in the chat. He's going to be joining us live in about a half an hour to be on as a guest. Christina Mitchell, you always look lovely. Thank you so very much. Does good. But what I hope what I say is as lovely as you think I look, okay? And here's why. It ended on this big thing. And I was like, objection, when Welcher morphed from engineering certainty, and then this got me, to scientific certainty when he was about to answer the ultimate question that's for the jury. And that was a big objection, led to another sidebar, right? And as a matter of fact, there was a discussion with Welcher in the courtroom. The jury got sent out. Why did I jump out? And maybe a different reason than Bob Alessi. I jumped out because having tried the Aaron Hernandez case, double murder, to a not guilty verdict in Massachusetts after Aaron had been convicted of a single murder, okay, a few years back. All right. And you know that I'm a forensic science nerd, right? The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has led the way in that, quote, experts have to stay in their lane. And if they have a mishmash of both science and some other expertise, which accident reconstructions do, they can't say scientific certainty, especially when you're trying to mishmash, your one course in medical school. That's a little fishy in and of itself. They have to say it in their lane. For instance, firearms experts can't say a reasonable degree of scientific certainty. Why? Because it gives the jury an imprimatur, an opinion that may be more valuable than it is. It suggests that there's somebody who's more valuable than they are. So they have to say ballistic certainty. So I jumped out of my seat, pulled up the case of Commonwealth versus Hang, right? Heang. You can all look it up. 458 Mass 827 2011 by the state's highest court. I think I wrote 2005 at one point. My nails and typos are me. Okay, and the Massachusetts court said, since the examiner, like in, for instance, firearms ballistics, uses both art, recognizing a match and a pattern, and science, uniqueness of tool marks, which now I think that they say that's not really a science anymore. They can't opine with absolute certainty. Therefore, they can't say scientific certainty, okay? As Welcher at one point said, he was like, sure, right? An opinion must be limited in scope, and that scope there is limiting how you couch it. So that's why you heard for a reasonable degree of engineering certainty. So when he morphed out to scientific certainty, woo! I was out of my seat, as you all know who were watching me here on it, because you can't do that. In Massachusetts, it's very, very strict on that. They had other cases dealing with this whole issue. And I think they're one of the few states that examines this whole idea that these forensic scientists who come into court and have absolute certainty are really sure of themselves. Okay. But anyhow, that was just a part of the issue. The issue was the ultimate opinion about whether or not this expert could testify to, because he was out of his lane. And let's look at what he did real quickly. I want to look at two pictures. One is, I call it the Blue Man Group, okay? The Blue Man Group, or as we've named our show tomorrow, Greasy Evidence. That's grease paint there. So without measuring the substrate, we could put that up on the side of me if you want, without measuring the substrate, right? And saying that he's the same height as JOK, and therefore he would hit the car the same way. And then he went up to the car, and I won't do it because I'm not ruining my Chanel. You know me. Okay. I'm not doing that. Okay. All right. Up to the car and just like moved his arm and said, look, if I move my arm this way, this is what happens. And I get this arm. I'm sorry. I get where the marks were going to be. And he made a distinction because after all, he did go to a course in medical school one time between the forearm and the arm. Okay. I don't think the jury's making that distinction. You know, we're talking plain English, by the way. Thank you, Stephanie Everson, member for 1 month. Linda, you're beautiful. And I love the lipstick. You're so very welcome. I'll try to let Missy put it on what it is later on one of our pages. Anyhow, so that's it just is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Texas Rose says, do you think the Judge Bev is going to let him answer that in the morning? I think she is. I think she's going to let him answer a portion of it in the morning, close to it, because, you know, although Massachusetts Supreme Court, where she's probably going to go to someday, she's got to make sure she's in sync with them. And I think that's why she needed to take that time. But here we are. Here's the Blue Man Group, or as we've named our show for tomorrow at 9:50 in the morning, Greasy Evidence. All right, this is not evidence, especially since it's not with you. Remember, he was wearing a shirt that had all sorts of like linear lines in it and all sorts of things, puncture marks, and then the shirt was up, and then the arm was punctured, and then there were linear lines through the shirt. This is not scientific. Okay, let's take it down because it has an autopsy picture on the side. So let's take it down right now. All right, and then the pièce de résistance for me to making it fit is what I call this. Let's just make it fit, and throwing this on the floor too. Okay, it's kind of like an indictment. I throw it on the floor. Okay, what was the next thing? Was the experimental skull fracture occipital deceleration impact. All right. Let's put that graph up there. Okay. And he couldn't even pronounce occipital. Okay. If you notice that. So if you're going to be a medical expert, maybe you should pronounce it. If I mispronounce names, I'm not dating. I'm a medical expert. I try to do forensics, and I try to learn what I can, but I will never try to keep up with the medical experts because they know a lot more than I know. And I know a lot more about trying a murder case than they know. So here you go. Experimental skull fracture, occipital discoloration impact. This is some group, and I don't know, I didn't hear where this was done, okay? In what country this was done. But I'll guarantee you that hundreds of skulls of corpses, so that's what this is, hundreds of skulls of corpses were dropped on the floor, okay, to see where their skulls fractured. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I know that as a living person, I have blood going through my skull. I have all sorts of nerves going through my skull. I have hair, all sorts of stuff. That how my skull reacts is going to be different. Ask your forensic pathologist, somebody that they don't have on the prosecution. Okay, ask your forensic pathologist about that. So if you drop a dead ass skull, right, and something that is leached out for a long time, and you take hundreds of them without family consent, I will bet you in whatever country this occurred, and if it was the United States, it'd be an embarrassment. But I tend to doubt it. Okay, you're not going to get the same result that you're going to get from this. And all you have to do is Google it. When I Googled it, if you know, they did that back in where President Kennedy was assassinated back in the 60s, far away history right now. And lots of people got into trouble with regard to that. So the experimental skull fracture, except for the skull motion impact, I mean, far as I'm concerned, this was garbage going into what the Commonwealth needed. And then it came to me. It came to me that all of this, not only was all this an issue, and I have my notes here because I wanted to make sure with regard to that, you know, the defense, the prosecution had to call Dr. Scorty Bella, a board certified forensic pathologist, who won't give them what they wanted, that this is a homicide, right, from a car impact. And she said there was no indication of an SUV impact, a car impact on John O'Keefe. They had the forensic neuropathologist, Renee Stonebridge, that they hid, who's also board certified. They're going to be dealing with the pathologist from the DOJ, FBI. They're going to be dealing with Dr. Elizabeth Loposada, who was a chief in the state of Rhode Island, medical examiner. What is missing from the prosecution's case? What is missing from the prosecution's case? Well, a board certified forensic pathologist. And I think they couldn't get one to go against what Dr. Scorty Bella had said. They couldn't, because if they could, they wouldn't need to try to broach with Judson Welcher, the accident reconstructionist, with his taking a medical school course, all right, the issue of whether or not this SUV hit John O'Keefe. And they certainly wouldn't have needed to go to Florida to get a brain surgeon who only operates on living people, who's never seen the brain of a dead person before. And we're going to talk to our own forensic pathologist. They wouldn't need to do that. They wouldn't need to get a workaround, right? With regard to it. They wouldn't have needed to get a workaround. Remind you, they have no board certified forensic pathologist on their side for the Commonwealth. There is a reason for that. There is an absolute reason for that, okay? That they don't have that, all right? And you had a lot of allegedly, sures, possibilities, all sorts of stuff. What you didn't have was a forensic pathologist saying, and you're not going to have one on the Commonwealth's case, saying within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty. Now, before I bring on our own board certified forensic pathologist for the night, let me just say a couple of things. If you all see Madeira Beach Caregiver in our stream, let me know, because we have just a little surprise for her. As you know, her birthday was the other day, and it was while we were on vacation. We all took a few days off. And also, I don't know, I don't see the grandfather or the sister of Skyhopper, okay? One of our young members here who watches us, she was going to the hospital last week. She had stitches. And Hosanna, who was on the other day before we left for our little mini vacation, was on, and she told us that she was Skyhopper's sister, and that she had to have concussion. She had a concussion and have had stitches. So we haven't seen her since that happened. She gives her allowance to us. Can you imagine somebody be interested in truth and justice and forensic science so much? So I don't know if you see Hosanna, if you see Skyhopper's name come up, it may be her grandpa who's on there, please let us know, and also Madeira Beach Caregiver. So with that mentioning to you, let us bring on, and I have three areas to talk to her about, Dr. Priya Banerjee. She is a board certified forensic pathologist, right? Board certified forensic pathologist. Priya, hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
Nice
to see you.
And Priya, by the way, has hairless cats. If you follow her,
oh yeah,
well, you will.
Oh yeah, I have three of them.
Three of them now. Her hairless cats, and she takes care of them. Like, you really want to be one of her hairless cats in terms of how to take care of them.
I appreciate that. Just like your poodle, right?
Yeah, just like Tubi the poodle, who everyone here in the chat knows. So, Priya, would you explain to us the importance of having a board certification in forensic pathology? My husband has forensic pathology, anatomic, and clinical pathology. He's board certified.
Yes.
Would you tell us why it's so important? And you are a board certified forensic pathologist, and give us a little bit of history and tell us why that's so important.
Well, I'm just honored to speak to you, but really Dr. Baden's the OG, right? And so he set the standard. That's how I look at it, right? And there was just a few founding fathers, him including, of forensic pathology. And then I sort of grew up in their shadows, if you will. But really, as the field has developed, the important thing is holding it to a standard, right? It's a relatively younger field of medicine compared to, let's say, cardiology or something, right? Internal medicine. But remember, all doctors have to practice at a certain level. That's board certification. Okay. And so I couldn't even be board eligible without having my anatomic pathology training, 4 years of residency, and my 1 year intense fellowship in forensic pathology. I'm not even able to take the exam. Once I'm signed off at every level that, yes, I'm a competent pathologist, I'm a competent forensic pathology candidate, I've done hundreds of autopsies, only then could I even sit for the boards. Boards obviously being administered through American Board of Pathology, and that says that I'm competent at a national level, if not an international level.
Right.
And so that's necessary for my job. That was a necessary job requirement, and really court, right? I mean, you can speak to that from your experience, that you need to know what you're talking about.
Right. You can't, as I say to somebody, you can't go in and you are a proctologist and then testify as an expert in cancer treatments, okay?
Correct.
Unless you've been trained. And this is the board that certifies you all is the one who recognizes the 24 medical specialties, and then the subspecialties of forensic pathology is one. Now, and you did a lot of training with regard to that. As you said, a lot of education and training that you could interpret this.
Right. And so and I just want to, I testify to this. Why do you even need to get specialty training? Because out of 4 years of pathology, 1 month, so 1/48, a fraction, is exposure to forensic pathology, right? That's where you do a rotation. That's not sufficient. That's exposure to peak interest. Then I did additional months in my residency called electives, and then I did my full year. So it's by far necessary to get that intensive training and then certification to follow up.
Right. So Blessed in Texas has a question for us. Thank you, Blessed, for the donation. Experts are there to testify to what they are hired to testify to. It doesn't mean expert isn't knowledgeable, just that he or she, I would say, is willing to go where wanted. Am I correct? Please elaborate. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but let's talk about it.
Well, I don't agree either. And I'm very forthright. No one ever told me I'm quiet. Let's just say that.
Neither my husband.
I know,
you don't like what he has to say. Yeah, that's it.
And so when I do consultative work, which I do, so I'm an expert, I give it to them like I see it, because that maintains my integrity of the case, and it's the best for the client, right? So if you think, a lot of this in a defense defense case, a lot of this is not looking good for the client, why wouldn't you tell the lawyer? Because then they can maybe get a plea deal, right? And I mean, I think you have to be honest. So I am hired by an attorney or a family to review an autopsy, and I tell them this is what I think is happening. Does that cost me money? I'm sure it does. I have very high profile cases which I did not take on because I did not believe in that viewpoint, let's say, or I couldn't help them defend. And so I think, that allows me to sleep at night. Maybe others are, they practice differently, but for me, it's very clear. I am hired initially to do a review. I'm paid, and this is my opinion. Obviously, if I go to court, I'm swearing on my integrity that this is what I believe the case, and this is the data. I always do medical research, like journal articles, textbooks, and cite, this is why I've come to this conclusion. So it's not just an opinion. It's really backed by, the training experience and medical literature.
So I guess Blessed in Texas depends on the quality of the person that you're hiring and whether or not they have ethics regarding Welcome Tuesday, who's a new member, and a super sticker. Came to see you, Priya, I think,
Oh, well,
Thank you so much. Okay. No, I want people to understand the importance of this board certification. And the fact to me that the prosecution needs to go around Dr. Scordi-Bello. Won't listen to what she said, or they called her a whack job. First of all, I think it's sexist. I mean, I think that came from a sexist point. But to go around and all, I think is also awful. I mean, and that's why I came to the conclusion they couldn't get somebody who was going to disagree with them, and then they had to go to these lengths. And maybe that's just inside baseball for us, Priya. What do you think?
Well, I've talked about this on Court TV as well. So my opinion is I agree with her. I've been on both sides, right? I've been the primary pathologist handling cases, and now I'm an expert. I do private autopsies, but I'm not at the Rhode Island office anymore. And I do function as part-time pathologist elsewhere, but I just want to keep it as sort of mainstream as possible. What I'm saying is that, investigation takes months to years. You're not always privy to that. But what you need to decide on is what data you have as well. You can't be strong-armed into calling something a homicide just because the police sort of feel that. You
want to maintain your independence is what you're saying.
Right. That's right. I always tell people I function as a doctor. I'm under I'm under the police or whether I'm under Department of Health, whoever hires me, it doesn't really matter because I'm here. This is my data, right? And they highlighted that there's no clear impact site on John O'Keefe. And I think that's, why it's a gray area. And I wish I could be as black and white and done in an hour as TV normally is, in the fictional world. But this is reality, right? I mean, it's tried once. People couldn't decide. It's being tried again. And I'm not sure, at least of what I've heard so far and what I've been able to follow, is that I don't think it's a home run for the prosecution.
Right.
I don't know.
The prosecution, as you know, when you get the visa with the prosecution, they have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Correct.
So that's the standard we're under. If there's maybe someone, we all have the charge that's in California that us lawyers love. Well, you could think somebody did it. Maybe they did it. It's possible they did it. It's probably they didn't. But the question is not for the jury to try to read between the lines. The question is to take the testimony they have from Dr. Scordi-Bello and everybody else and say that the prosecution proved it. So I have another area for you. And I think I texted this to you. If you die, I mean, a lot of things have been made on body temperature. And I think Dr. Scordi-Bello said she wouldn't call hypothermia a cause of death independently of having the skull fracture. Because if you die, your body temperature is going down anyhow and going down further if it's in the snow, right?
So, I mean, I think the big things are that there were anatomic signs. I mean, if you're dead in the snow, you're going to be cold. Your body's going to be frozen. Did that happen before or after death, right? Is it a post-mortem change, meaning you're in a cold environment, your body's going to cool faster? Or is it a truly contributing to the death like it did in his case? I think when you see stress ulcers, those Wisniewski spots in the stomach, you see the pancreas dying off. These are areas, or these are soft signs of hypothermia that we can contribute, and I think that's why it summed it up. I think that's why she put it on there.
Right, she put it on there. And then there was a question of whether or not the Lucas machine would cause that. So again, if you have two different ways of things happening, that's the problem to me. As a lawyer, I see as the burden of proof here. Now, I assume, since we did talk about the corpses, I assume you've never taken the skull of a corpse and dropped it on the floor to do an experiment to see where the acceptable fracture lines are.
No, I haven't. No, no, that's not anything I would even permit in my presence. That I'm not okay with that. So I'm not familiar with the study, but that sounds, I mean, even on educational corpses, like bodies that are donated for medical school dissection, they are treated with a huge amount of respect. We had like a funeral for them at the end of the year. Every private autopsy I do is very carefully done. It's never it's never manhandled or experimented on in any way.
Right. That's what my husband says. You treat everybody with respect.
Yeah, that's absolutely not allowed. And I've never been exposed. I mean, just like Dr. Baden, I'm sure we see horrific endings from forces being applied to the body, but it's never under any experimental means that I'm using them.
So one final area I want to talk to you about is when you are, because you talked about all the forensic pathology and all the training and all that you have to go through to make sure you see brains of all different types. You see brains of dead people and you see brains of people that may have been alive that then died, the 25% that Dr. Wolf had. So the importance of a forensic pathologist in seeing the brain of a deceased person is much more valuable here than it is a surgeon that does tumor surgery for gamma rays.
Right. And I think they were getting at that. He was very well spoken, and I think he's very well, versed in his field. I know he was saying, I see more brains than a forensic pathologist, but you don't see him with the injuries that we do. The severity of injuries that lead to death. Obviously, those are not the patients he's treating unless he's acting in a trauma surgeon way. So I think some of his career had been at shock trauma in Maryland, right next to the ME's office where I trained. And obviously those outcomes, they do spectacular work and they do save a lot of people. But again, obviously we have a filtered population that unfortunately don't make it despite arriving to intense trauma centers. And he doesn't see that sort of process all the way through, right? He's not seeing their brain exposed the way I am. Obviously, I'm not treating brain tumors, so we have different roles. I'm not.
And isn't that the point? He should stay with his brain tumors, and the forensic pathologist who's had the training and all to do what you're doing should talk about the autopsy and the effects.
I find it interesting that they brought him on and not another pathologist.
My opinion is they could not get one because it's so easy to find if you're the Commonwealth or state or the government to find a forensic pathologist. And my opinion is they could not get one. And all. So anyhow, I want to thank you, but I don't want to let you go because here we are, Justice Served TV family, and we have one of our family members on, Madeira Beach caregiver. And let me just read what she says, but then I want to do something for her. She's a big supporter of the network. Linda, I don't want to interrupt your live stream, but I am here. Rest it up now. Please wait till the end of your interviews to respond. And we're going to do it right at the end because we're going to have Priya be part of this. Don't want to be rude. P.S. Love your new hairstyle. Hello, Dr. Priya. All right. Shall we do what we want to do for Madeira Beach caregiver? And the reason, it was her birthday on the 25th of May.
That.
So happy birthday, Madeira Beach. So now you become a member of the Justice Served TV family. Dr. Banerjee. Next time you're going to have to bring one of your children.
They were screaming outside. They sometimes try to break in, but I keep them away. Next time they'll make a debut.
They'll make a debut. Don't worry. Tubi, the poodle, and Domino, Michael Bryan's pup, have made many debuts.
Very good. So if they barge in, no one's going to be mad.
Everyone's would love it.
They're rare cats and they're very fun. They're actually very dog-like. And I don't know if you saw my pictures. I took Rosie to Rockefeller Center.
I saw that.
It was really fun. So she's a little bit of a world traveler. So we'll travel on over again.
All right. Thank you, Priya. I hope I can call on you again. Thank you for coming on. I promise you'd be off by 6:30.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Mom life away. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
I just want to send, birthdays are so special. So I'm glad to be a part of that.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Good night. All right. So there you have it. She wasn't going to drop a corpse like that. I threw mine on the floor. I just dropped mine on the floor. Okay. She wasn't going to do that. So thank you, Jerome Street, member for 3 months. Salute. Thank you so much, Jerome. And also for your donations. Woo! I hope you liked that interview. We've been working very hard at getting Dr. Banerjee on the show to be able to tell you the difference between a forensic pathologist and the training they go through and how they seem to be dissed by the Commonwealth here by other people. By the way, I just want to say something before Jason Grant gets on, and that's as to Dr. Welcher. Well, one of the questions I have is they clearly came on to own and wrap their arms around Shannon with the N Burgess's testimony and his statistics, knowing what we know. I mean, he'd be rejected in my mind if I were on that jury right out of the blue. But, Welcher is a vice president of Aperture. And one of the things I asked people to look at to say, and we got our answer back, was there an IPO, when he was bought by Aperture, do we know, and he should address this, I think, not unless he should address this, does he have an ownership interest in the company? Does he have stock? Because why? Because in 2022, they wanted to take out an IPO, go public, is what I called it this afternoon. I said, anyone know if they want to go public? Because if they do want to go public, they're not jettisoning Shannon Burgess until after this case. And that could be one reason they're wrapping their arms around him. And indeed, if Welcher has other interests, in other words, if he has an ownership interest in Aperture, instead of saying, no, I disavow him, the old Mission Impossible, if you're found, we'll disavow you. That didn't happen here, right? Okay, that didn't happen here. I'm not, I'm really kind of like, I want to know the answer to those non-scientific questions. But anyhow, now that we've answered some of the things today, now that you've seen my sort of mini rants, and I'm using a yellow legal pad. I just have to give you a story. I don't recommend, if you're trying a case, to use a yellow legal pad. Sometimes I falter back to them, but I always like to use like white or pink, because jurors expect to see a yellow legal pad. They say lawyer, 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 and I try to mix it up a little bit. But wow, that's what's happening. So right now we have a very special guest on, and you know him. He was in the chat this afternoon. He was in the chat tonight. His name he was in the chat the other day. He was with Michael Bryant in Boston in court, and his name was bandied about. But now you're going to actually see the real person, Jason Grant. Welcome to Justice Served TV. Oh,
hey, Linda, buddy.
Oh,
How you doing?
I'll give you a hands up. There you go. Did you bring your sign?
I got it behind me there, if you can see right there.
Okay.
I got that side, the Corinthians one, and I got my Auntie Bev sign too. That was doing my protest out before.
So you were one of the here Bev's Court, a clown show, is a clown show. Okay, you were one of the original. Your name is going to be on that opinion from the First Circuit Court of Appeals, and you actually were holding the religious sign that got you to where you are now, right? If I recall, or was it the anti-Bev sign initially? It was the religious one?
Yeah, I had the anti-Bev sign. I was doing the protest. Because I live right down the street from the courthouse, so I was going out over the winter in November, like every week, and I was just protesting Bev with the Bev's Court, the clown show and stuff, like once a week or so. And then as the trial came, and then the buffer zone, that's when we decided to challenge it. But then after we got relief from the First Circuit Appeals, I had the 2 Corinthians 3:17 sign trying to walk out there, and then they told me I couldn't have that out front.
Before we go into it, could you read the sign for everybody so they understand this is a Bible verse, and it doesn't say anything like, free Karen Reed, all right?
No, it's about freedom. It's 2 Corinthians 3:17. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and there is the Spirit of the Lord there is freedom. It's just a Bible verse about freedom.
And it's the Spirit of the Lord. I mean, for everyone in our community that talks about walking with God, it seems to me that the only people who aren't walking with God here is the Commonwealth, because it's outrageous. Now, what happened to you initially? Give us the whole history of what happened with the sign and how you ended up before the First Circuit Court of Appeals the other day.
Yeah, so when we had the original buffer zone rule, I think it was like a couple weeks ago, and they went up to the First Circuit after the district court and the federal court denied us, and then we went up to the First Circuit Court of Appeals. And oops, sorry. So I just fixed that.
It's good. We're good. We're an easy show here.
Okay. and then when they agreed with us and put it back down to the narrowly tailored, we went back out to the buffer zone, and we still can't wear free Karen Reed stuff yet or anything trial related till we get the decision that we're waiting for to come down. But one of my friends, Jess, made that sign for me to hold. And as we were walking up out of the courthouse, we got stopped by the state police, and he said that sign is like not okay to bring outside. Like that was like a Friday, and then so I came back on the following Monday, and I brought it out again, and they said that we could have it that day and have it out, but I guess it was just the trooper went across the street and got a clarity from the court, and they said we could have it for the day. So basically a day, she said let them have it for the rest of the day, and it's like a day by day thing. Like we need permission, we have to get like a permit to hold the sign out there from the DA's office in the court to get the okay to hold the sign. And that, I guess they after first denying it, they said I could bring it at a temporary, just for the day, and they'll take it day by day. But if I bought another Bible verse, do I have to go get approved by the DA to bring it out too?
Another, so you have to have pre-approval which is totally in violation of the First Amendment.
Yeah.
Bring a sign out for a Bible verse because they have to approve which Bible verse they're going to think doesn't violate the buffer zone order, as we've called it, the buffer zone.
Yeah. So we definitely need clarity. Like even the troopers weren't too sure of what they could do, and they have to go in and ask the DA what we can have. So we need this decision to come down. I was hoping it was going to come down Friday or maybe today, so we can get clarity and finally know what is and isn't allowed in the buffer zone.
Yeah, and as we all said, the first one should have been clear enough.
Yeah.
All you had to do was have a mens rea that you weren't trying to disrupt or influence the jurors. In other words, you weren't trying to tamper with the jury or disrupt the court proceedings, and you could be in the buffer zone if you wore pink. Because what's the next thing? Is you can't wear pink because pink is considered a protest color? Would that be the next thing? It's
crazy, and like, you don't know what you can wear, what you can't wear. And I said the troopers I just don't know either. Like they don't. We need clarity.
Well, there always seems to be one trooper though that kind of enforces things, right?
Oh, Trooper Hardman. He's a head trooper down there, and he takes charge down there.
Yeah. Now I know I don't want to get in trouble, but then you had poor Erica Walsh, who buys from the merch store the stuff from the
microdots,
right?
Microdots.
Store, and it says criminals control Norfolk County. It doesn't say they control the jury. So it doesn't say they falsely. They control Norfolk County, which, by the way, from what we've seen, there's been a lot of. I could understand why Karen Reed became a vehicle for this, especially when you look at it. I know you're familiar with the Sandra Birchmore case.
Yeah.
What if you came down with a sign that said, can the Massachusetts State Police arrest anyone? In Sandra Birchmore, would that be considered a Karen Reed protest sign?
I think it would be, because a lot of the same Canton police and the state police were in that investigation too, and then they messed up that investigation of the same cops that didn't do a good job in the Google search and the deleted text with Jeff McCabe. It's the same troopers, Garino, and so the cases are kind of intertwined with the same investigation, and it's crazy.
Right, and I've said that at least the Massachusetts State Police have made one arrest. I guess it's and that's so they wanted to equal what the feds did in the area by arresting Farwell for the death of the alleged homicide of Sandra Birchmore. So now they've got Erica Walsh. Well, that's a one-on-one comparison.
Yeah.
Jason?
Yeah, right. It's crazy. Like how we're across the street. The jury already comes in early. And they come in on a bus behind the courthouse. No one goes near them at all, and so they can't see us or hear us out front. We agreed to be not loud, and so what is us holding signs about freedom or protesting the government? The jury can't see anything we're doing out there. So I don't know what. There's no need for the buffer zone, like you said. It should be. There's already laws on the book that they can prosecute someone if someone's trying to intimidate somebody or make them change their story. We already have laws for that. You don't need this buffer zone to an all-inclusive thing.
You're going to be able to auction your sign off to give some monies to whatever charity is going to be good by the time this case finishes. Now, with regard to that, I know you were in the court and you're hoping that the decision will come down. Any indication from the gods above that they hear anything about when the decision on your buffer zone is going to come out? Because then I want to go back and talk about Judge Doolin's decision.
No, I haven't heard nothing. I talked to Mark earlier. He's in Italy right now.
Mark Ragazzo.
Yeah, he was doing a class on the First Amendment of free speech or something about that in Italy, and he'll be back next week. But we haven't heard nothing on the decision yet.
Now, and also you had the decision from Doolin, who said you didn't violate the buffer zone, but it was a close call that it almost was like if you had stepped 1 foot beyond and were on courthouse territory. And I'm not sure how that's defined, whether that's the steps in front of the courthouse, if they own the steps by the city, you would have been in violation of the buffer zone, but because you were across the street, you weren't in violation.
Technically, yeah, because I don't know it depends on interpretation. Like I interpret it as the courthouse is the Superior Court right there, but then they could interpret it as the courthouse is the whole courthouse complex. You get the Superior Court, Registry of Deeds, and then the county courthouse right there. So it's the whole block. So they could interpret it as that's the courthouse property too. So in terms of, as you know, my pod partner, my stream partner, Michael Bryan, is one of the plaintiffs with Tom DeRosa on this because I was broadcasting on the air when Hardman told him, we've seen you, when he was doing interviews with the Justice Serve TV microphone. And I saw that. Yeah, I watched.
Right? And I've seen you walk by 5 times. Don't walk by a 6th. So Michael, figured he's going to be arrested if he walked by a 6th, and he really wanted to get the stories of everybody there. And I think that's how he met everyone and ended up meeting you. But he's one of the original plaintiffs, also waiting for a decision with regard to that. Although they seem to have backed off him, they've let him inside the buffer zone to get some interviews. But that could change at any time. That could change at any time.
That's the problem. Like I said, we need it defined from the federal judge because no one really knows what's going on. It's what they interpret. They can interpret something. Another trooper can interpret something else and lock you up for this. And it's just crazy.
Yeah, and then I point to the fact that here in New York City, we have the Diddy trial going on, right? I mean, the buffer zone is like, the sidewalk and maybe a street for security, but it's not really a buffer zone for First Amendment rights. It's just for security, but you can still be in it, at certain points. I mean, and you can't get any more high profile than the federal court downtown in New York City and 100 Center Street. Even when Trump was being tried, you were able to get in, into the park. You walked on the side street, you walked in the park, and you were right across from Center Street. And you could add anything you wanted there. No one said that needed to be a buffer zone from jurors.
It's crazy. Like you see all the high profile trials across the country. There's nothing like a buffer zone like this that encompasses so much. And I think it's because we're protesting against the government and the corruption, and it's that she's being set up and being by the government. And so they're basically saying we can't protest the government because they don't want to be any light shine on them. It's crazy.
I want to ask you one final question about the evidence we heard in court today, but I want to bring John Mateus in, another famed First Amendment attorney, and he doesn't know this. We're going to put him in a 3-box if we can. I think we can do this. There we go. He doesn't know this, John. But when we were looking for the decision on Doolin, and I needed it quickly, I went immediately to your website, okay? And was able to take it off your website before I was able to get it off the court. I immediately got it from your website. So I'm so happy to meet you. I'm glad you came on Justice Serve TV. And just for a second, I just want to ask Jason one more thing, and he could hang around because he was with you in court in Boston. But the testimony today, I really said I thought this seemed to be a great idea, but a big flop. By the end, what was your viewing? I mean, you heard me earlier talking about dropping, they're using someone who's taking literature from dropping corpse skulls on the ground, probably from Germany a long time ago. I mean, to me, that doesn't fly. No forensic pathologists on their side. To me, it looks like they're trying to work around to get a conviction. What are your thoughts, Jason?
So you came a little broken up. When you say you're talking about Judge Doolin's? Yeah.
No, I'm actually talking about today because I know you were following the testimony. What was your views today?
I was in and out today because I was working today, but so I was watching. I didn't catch the whole thing, so I was popping in and out, and I was behind. But it's like they allow this expert in, no voir dire or anything, but Dr. Marie Russell and the Acker guys who already testified and were already voir dired last trial, and they let Hank bring him in voir dire again, and then she's like, it's a close call. If we're gonna let them in, and these guys come in no problem. And they have no qualifications at all. Not especially not compared to Acker and Dr. Russell.
Yeah, can't make it up. Jason, I'm going to let you go unless
right.
you want to stay on with John. And I'm going to give John the floor because I want him to tell us all about himself. And we have posted your website to follow you on X, Mateus Law. And John, talk to us. Talk about who you are, what's happening.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a lawyer out here in Massachusetts, and I have a mixed practice. I'm a solo, but obviously I felt really strongly about this case and the First Amendment issues that are getting involved here, because it's just, from my opinion, it's just very ridiculous, this order, this buffer zone order. That's how I became involved in this case. And I'm representing on appeal and also back down in the district court now 3 organizations. I'm not representing Mr. Grant. He's got a separate lawyer for that. I'm representing these organizations known as the First Amendment Lawyers Association, which is also known as FALA, and then the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, and then the National Press Photographers Association, the NPPA. The 3 organizations are very concerned about this because this buffer zone case impacts both journalists and demonstrators. We've consistently been stating that journalists are being scooped up in this buffer zone for merely doing journalistic activities.
Like my partner.
Yes. I mean, it's a great example. But Mr. DeRozier was, even after this latest amendment to the order, he was roughed up. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. He was locked up, right? He was actually physically, wasn't he physically carted across the street?
Up. And the crazy part was, according to his police statement, the day before, or it was like on Friday, he asked the police, "Can I stand here and videotape?" And they said yes. And then the next day, on Tuesday or Monday, they physically just lifted him up and dragged him across the street. Obviously, very disturbing. This was after the amended order went in, when this stuff was supposed to stop. The order itself, in any form, is just very vague. It's very vague in the sense that it covers anything you might call a demonstration. That's why, Mr. Grant here, he was holding a sign that it had a Bible verse on it. Literally nothing else besides the Bible verse. But is that a demonstration under the order? Well, it's certainly a demonstration, but it's, it could be taken as, you're trying to convert people to your religion. It's a Bible verse, for crying out loud. And we're sitting here going, well, the state police are thinking it's a demonstration. Mr. DeRozier, very disturbing. So we filed an amici. When it went up to the First Circuit, we also filed an amici brief in the federal district court when it came back down. And I actually argued alongside Mr. Randazza, separately, of course, at the hearing in front of Judge June. And the decision has not come down yet as of today. We were hoping the decision might have come down either on Friday, which it did not. So we were hoping for today. Nothing has come down as of today. And so right now, the rights of these people are, under oppression, and, wrongfully so. And there's
could the courts hold this and then say it's moot? Hold it after the trial?
I mean, could they? Yes. I mean, there have been situations where that has occurred. I don't think that the federal court will do that. I don't think Judge June will do that. He gave us a hearing right away. And that's always a positive. And the thing is, this is the second time it's been through it, as Mr. Grant has pointed out. It started in the district court, went back up to the First Circuit. Now it's been sent back to the district court. And after these 3 incidents happened, after Mr. Grant's Bible sign, Mr. DeRozier, and of course Erica Walsh, who was arrested, or all that occurred after, basically on the same day. That's when we got this hearing in front of the federal district court. But yes, they could technically try to, that could happen, but there's also a constitutional standard called wrong capable of repetition yet evading review. That means even if the trial ended, these issues, we would argue, are still hot issues that should be decided by the federal courts to correct.
All right. So here's a loaded question. Truth seekers of pop-in-law. Hey, Massachusetts lawyer. That's you, John Mateus. Tell me how this is constitutional allow state police who are the corrupt ones to be in the buffer zone. It's kind of a loaded question.
I see what side you're. Well, the thing about, like we said, the buffer zone, I'll just explain quickly. Traditionally, public sidewalks, you can protest anything. You can demonstrate however you want, as long as it's not a true threat or, overtly, the vulgar sexual kinds of things. But what Mr. Grant, for example, what he's done, that you're perfectly allowed. You're perfectly allowed to walk down most public sidewalks and state, my government is corrupt. Throw them all out. I mean, a guy running for office might just say that. The fact that now you can't do it on the public sidewalks for the courthouse, very problematic, very unconstitutional in our opinion, and it should not have been allowed. Certainly, the court has the right to control the courthouse property, which would be the courthouse steps or the doors inside the courthouse. Right. But once you hit that public sidewalk, and that's a clear public sidewalk in front of that courthouse, no dispute there, then that becomes protest territory, demonstration territory. And again, the jurors, there's no evidence of jurors being influenced by anything that's going on out front, because this is all occurring out front. As far as we know, the jurors are busted and brought in the back door, so they're not probably seeing any of this. And there's no evidence that they have been. The only evidence that occurred that was a hearing where a juror said they could hear noise outside. I mean,
didn't even say what noise, right?
Yeah, exactly. There was no effort to tie it to any of the demonstrators going on. It could have been just a car horn. It could have been two people arguing on a completely different case. It could have been a police officer yelling about somebody, which of course, would be the demonstrators here. And so
it certainly wasn't Jason, who's just carrying a sign saying nothing.
Right. He was religiously proselytizing, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that's all that says. And if you're going to try to be like, well, the implication is that he was talking about Karen Reed. Do the jurors follow all the protesters? Do they know their names? Do they know every little, nuance of what's going on? I hope not. I hope they're paying attention to the trial. They shouldn't be paying attention to, what protesters wearing this today. I mean, if they are, there's no even evidence they can see outside their courtroom from where they are. And I doubt they can. So again, we didn't think that the orders in any of their implication actually aligned with due process. Gave people, none of the protesters got to speak at these hearings. The evidence collected, there was a paucity of it that this was having any effect on the trial, or had caused any juror to change their minds or anything like that.
They just want their voices to be heard. They think that, given the Birchmore and everything else that's going on, and what we've seen is the real problems with evidence in this case, that there's a corruption going on and it needs to be addressed, not with what the verdict. None of them have said, unless you say free Karen Reed, but they're not going down there chanting that at all.
Well, yes.
On a side note about the jury being able to hear us, that was that was during deliberations, and I don't think they heard us. But that final week during deliberations, a couple of times the girls in the blue shirts came down. They had a handful of them for a couple hours for the cameras. They came down, and Kay Peters came down there.
Who's the blue shirts? Tell me the girls in the blue shirts are.
Yeah, it was Kay. It was basically, I think there's people who hate Turtle Boy, like Kay Peters, and then the other girl, Lindsay, the fake victim, and then there was a couple probably McGalbert friends. But they couldn't even get that many people. But they came down. There's video out there. They came down to deliberation with a megaphone through the buffer zone, and they were getting escorted by the state police through all of Karen's supporters in there, on the side of the courthouse by the field, where they say the jury could hear us, and they had a megaphone yelling, and so I believe that was them, the other side. And Kay Peters just came out, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that she's being paid by the DA's office. So someone was being paid by the DA's office. Was out there making the noise, and they're accusing us of making the noise. So,
and that's where you don't have a hearing on the specifics and the facts.
Yeah.
So let me just, Tuesday has a question. Maybe one of you know, how is Tom doing after surgery today? Thank you for fighting the fight. Jason or John, do you know?
I don't know. I'm not in contact with Mr. Duragier.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I talked to Tom before he went in for surgery. I wasn't down the courthouse today, so I haven't talked to him at all since surgery.
Yeah, so you can let us know if you could, because obviously, as I said, everyone's very following here, and Michael Bryan is off on assignment somewhere else on another matter, and he'll be back next week to Dedham and all. So Wow. So what do you think the next steps are? Well, first of all, Jason, let me ask you, what's the next step for you?
I'm just going to keep coming down there. I've been trying to balance work and stuff, so I've been saving some days. So as the trial goes on, especially closer to the end, I'm going to take more time off and be down there, try to get down there a lot more. But I've been sporadically going down there, maybe half days and stuff, trying to save my time from work. So.
Yeah. And John, let me ask you, someone like Jason, people think that the people that are protesting our freedom under the First Amendment are somehow like crazy lunatics. I mean, these are people that work for a living. They're struggling. They're taking their own time off to try to talk about the corruption that they're seeing, the lack of the arrests in Sandra Birchmore, all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that they've been seeing for years. What would you say to them, in terms of their situation, which is precarious right now because you don't have a decision?
Right. It's incredibly precarious, as you point out, because these people, not only are they're not professionals at this, they're not being paid by anyone. These are people like Mr. Grant, who just see this as an injustice and want to demonstrate as a result of that. And then they're also not being protected properly under the law for doing this. So they're trying to balance their personal life and then their professional life. Like I said, we've already had one person arrested who's a person with, as far as I know, no criminal record to speak of in their life. And they're just trying to make their voices heard. And it's almost like, have you ever heard the phrase, the Streisand effect?
Right.
Every single time something happens that appears it's going to push down the demonstrators, it just makes it louder. This is part of the reason why the First Amendment is so helpful, because it allows people, to breathe their dissent, and then that dissent, if it's not agreed upon by the group, will be quietly put away, but at least they got to present it. But when you constantly go after the people trying to breathe the dissent, it breeds a toxic air environment of conspiracy. I mean, and whether that is a true thing or not, I'm not trying to judge either way. But if you keep telling me I can't say something that, I'm not a troublemaker, and it's not something that is, I thought I had the First Amendment right to say, it's only going to make me believe it more. And it only makes other people believe it more. And this is a problem, like I said, with this buffer zone order. It was just it's so large in distance. Let me put it to you another way. Abortion clinics and foreign embassies that people are protesting outside of, they don't get 200 feet. Okay. Wow. There's case law, I'm being generalized, but usually it's stay 30 to 40 feet away from entrances and exits. Don't threaten people. But if it's a public sidewalk, stand there and, say your piece. And so you want to go protest a foreign embassy you think is committing human rights abuses, or abortion clinic that you think is, doing bad things. You're welcome to do that until, unless things, obviously got really out of hand. And there was no evidence of getting out of hand. 200 feet is just and the fact that it's still not amended. I would have thought in the amended order it would have been lessened in some respect, and it wasn't. She essentially said, all my other orders are still in effect. It's just right. That if you're not intending to influence people from in the courthouse, which is such a vague standard that I would say that it's not really a standard.
All right, I'll leave it to the state police to interpret what the intent of somebody who's wearing a shirt, a religious T-shirt, a religious sign is.
And it's not really fair to the state police. I'll just say this, not to defend or attack, but it's sort of like they're supposed to be part of the executive branch. They're supposed to be enforcing the law, not guessing at what it means. And that's the judge and juries and court system's job. So when you have then now you get this vagary where no two police officers are going to agree about whether something is intending to influence. That requires knowing somebody's mind. That requires a trial. And so in that situation, a police officer is going to be disagreeing with the average person because different police officers are going to disagree. And they shouldn't have to make that decision. I mean, I don't know if they have law degrees, but they're not supposed to be acting as lawyers or judges in this situation. And it's a quote from a case, Chicago v. Morales. I cited it to the district court and the First Circuit. But basically, Chicago v. Morales has this great quote that says, a law is void, constitutionally void, for vagueness when it gives, quote, too much discretion to the police and too little notice to the citizens about what they're allowed to do. And this order is a classic example. We've got Mr. Grant thinking, well, my Bible sign should be okay. Nope. I mean, and it's fine everywhere else. If he marched in downtown Dedham holding it over his head, it's perfectly fine. But the moment he gets within 200 feet of the courthouse, it suddenly becomes this thing that's got to be well, at the time removed. I guess the hearing apparently cleared him, which is a whole nother issue. But I mean, he could be arrested again, or he could be not arrested, but he could be forced out again because you weren't arrested, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he wasn't arrested. That was the good news. All right, I
Yeah,
want
but
to
I said
thank
the
both of
troopers.
you.
Sorry, the troopers don't
Go
even.
ahead, Jason.
The troopers need clarity too, as you just said, because they're not sure either. So they have to go get clarity. They have to go across the street and ask the DA's office. Yes, we need clarity in that decision.
The First Amendment does not allow for situations like this. That is
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank both of you. I want to ask our subscribers to, everyone watching, to hit like. These gentlemen gave us their time tonight to explain everything. I hope it was well informed. Hit subscribe, hit share, and notify, and you'll be able to get this episode on Justice Served TV, where we're now approaching a lot of subscribers in a very short period, all because of people like you. We try to give the straight scoop, as you can see, both sides, just like you were saying. It's unfair to the police also to interpret this, John. We're trying to get the straight scoop. But the straight scoop we see in that courtroom, by the way, will continue tomorrow, but maybe our title of Greasy Evidence is kind of put it on notice as to how at least I, as one of the 50% of Justice Served TV, feel about what is being done in that courtroom. And I think by tomorrow night's show, we'll be able to label that the Alessi Hour. I just have that feeling. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Moderators. Thank you all.
Yeah.
We will see you all tomorrow morning at 9:50 a.m. right here on Justice Served TV. Again, before you go, hit that like, share, subscribe, and notify button. I'm Linda Kenney Baden. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
From the stars.